The doctors called it a stress-induced aneurysm. For 21 days, I was a ghost, a prisoner in my body, floating in a disorienting haze of beeping machines and sterile white ceilings. The world was muffled a distant hum. The whole time, a fuzzy, persistent thought managed to pierce the fog. Why hadn't my husband, Clovis, come to see me? When I was finally discharged, I was weak, unsteady, and still smelled faintly of antiseptic. A taxi dropped me at our home's curb, the home I had designed, down to the last tile. My hands, which I barely recognized as my own, trembled as I put my key in the lock. It wouldn't turn. I jiggled it, confused. Maybe the lock was just stiff? That's when I saw it. A large, bright red sold sign hammered into my flower bed, desecrating my prize-winning hydrangeas. The blood drained from my face, and my knees nearly buckled. I peered through the living room window, and my world stopped. There he was, Clovis, my husband of 15 years, toasting champagne with her. Maya, my 25-year-old junior colleague. She was wearing my favorite silk robe. My name is Elena Durant. I'm 38 years old, and I've spent the last 15 years building two things. A marriage I thought was unshakable and an architectural firm known for precision, integrity, and clean lines. I designed homes where people felt safe. I never imagined I'd be locked out of my own. Clovis saw me. A slow, pitying smile dripped across his face. He sauntered outside, dangling a document. It's sold, Elena. Power of attorney. You were incapacitated. He sneered, his voice dripping with false concern. Now get off my property. He left me on the sidewalk. My small hospital discharge bag, filled with useless pamphlets on aneurysm recovery, sat at my feet. I could feel his eyes on me from the window. He and Maya were both watching. They were expecting tears. They were waiting for me to scream, to pound on the door, to collapse into a heap on the lawn he'd never mowed. They wanted the satisfaction of my breakdown. I wouldn't give it to them. I just sat on the cold curb, the rough concrete biting into my thin hospital pants. I focused on my breathing, just as the nurses had taught me. I waited, counting to 60, until I heard the heavy front door click shut. The show was over. Only then did I reach into my hospital bag. Past the prescriptions and the discharge papers, my fingers found it. A second, prepaid phone he knew nothing about. I bought it 6 months ago and paid in cash. I made one call. My voice was hoarse, a dry rasp, but it was steady. He did it, I said. My lawyer, Leora, replied. Her voice was a steel blade. Good. The trap is sprung. I've sent a car for you. Welcome back, Elena. The black car Leora sent took me to a modest, extended stay hotel. The room was beige and anonymous. It was perfect. I first stood in the shower for 30 minutes, the water scalding hot, scrubbing the smell of sickness and betrayal from my skin. I watched the soap suds swirl down the drain, imagining it was my old life. Clovis had drained our joint accounts, leaving me with a negative balance and a pile of pending overdraft fees. He thought he had left me destitute. He thought I was broken and alone. I sat on the stiff hotel bed, wrapped in a threadbare towel, and opened my personal laptop. I logged into a new bank account. It was an account under my maiden name, opened at a different bank 6 months ago. For the last 6 months, every freelance project I took on, every bonus I earned, I had told him was delayed or unpaid. He just rolled his eyes, annoyed. He had no idea I was building my war chest. I looked at the balance. It was more than enough. I was not broke. I was not a victim. I was a client. I spent the night at the hotel, staring at the ceiling as the weight of everything sank in. Sleep refused to come. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them. Their laughter, their hands, their betrayal. By morning, exhaustion had dulled the pain, but not the clarity. That was when Leora called. Her voice was calm and deliberate, the voice of someone who had already moved into action. At first light, she had reported the case to the police and secured a search warrant. By noon, she was at the house with 2 officers combing through every room, collecting documents, electronics, and personal items for evidence. She didn't tell me to come. She knew I wasn't ready to face that place again. Later that afternoon, I was in her office, a sleek, modern space that always made me feel stronger. She slid a mug of strong black coffee toward me. It was the best thing I'd tasted in a month. The power of attorney document is a near-perfect forgery of your signature, she said, sliding the paper across the polished desk. I stared at the sloppy imitation of my name. He hadn't even gotten the loop on the E right. He's always been arrogant, I said, my voice tight. He's also stupid, Leora replied, a rare, thin smile on her lips. He was so proud of his forgery, he got careless. Then she reached into her briefcase and pulled out an object, a beautiful, high-end designer pen. You accidentally left this on your desk in the home office, remember? She said. I nodded. It had been a gift to myself. What Clovis didn't know was that it was also a high-fidelity audio recorder. The police inventory listed it when we searched the house, she added. I pulled it from the evidence bag. Leora pressed a button on her laptop. We listened. We heard him and Maya laughing. We heard her giggle, your E is too loopy, baby. And then his voice, casual, cruel, it doesn't matter. She'll be so doped up on painkillers when she gets out, she'll never even question it. That evening, as I was reviewing my new business financials in my quiet hotel room, my new phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. My heart hammered. Elena, it's Maya. I am so sorry. I just heard what Clovis did. He's a monster. I had no idea he was selling the house, I swear. He manipulated me. He told me you were leaving him. Can we please meet? I feel so used. I want to help you. The fake sympathy was so thick I could almost feel it dripping from the screen. She wasn't sorry. She was scouting. She was trying to find out what I knew, what I was planning. She was checking to see if I was a threat or a puddle. She wanted to play the victim, so I wouldn't drag her down with him. I smiled. This was an opportunity. I texted back, my fingers flying. Oh, Maya, thank you. I'm so scared and alone. I'm at the little motel on 4th Street. I could really use a friend right now. Yes, please. Let's meet. I would play the broken woman. We met at a crowded downtown cafe. The noise of the espresso machine and bad music providing the perfect cover. Maya put on an Oscar-worthy performance. She rushed in, her eyes wide, and ordered nothing. She cried into her hands, telling me a long, tangled story about how Clovis had convinced her that our marriage was over and that I had checked out long ago. She said he forced her to go along with the house sale, that she was just as much a victim as I was. I nodded. I comforted her. I put my hand on hers and said, my voice trembling slightly, it's not your fault, Maya. I know how he can be. He fooled me for years. She visibly relaxed, a flicker of triumph in her eyes. She thought she had fooled me. As she left the cafe, she gave me one last, pitying look. What she didn't see was the man sitting 2 tables away, a man I had hired 4 months ago. My private investigator, Mr. Alani, tipped his newspaper at me. A moment later, my phone buzzed. It was a photo of Maya getting into a brand new, midnight blue luxury car. A car I knew Clovis had bought her last week, with money he'd stolen from our empty joint account. My lawyer and I went to my bank. We didn't go to the counter, we went to the vault. The air was cold and still. Clovis knew about my main safety deposit box. He thought it just held my grandmother's jewelry and our passports. He'd even asked for the key a few months ago, just in case of an emergency. I'd given him a copy. He didn't know about the second box, opened at a different branch under my maiden name. I inserted my key. The bank manager inserted hers, and the heavy metal door swung open with a hydraulic hiss. I pulled out the long, thin box. It was heavy. Leora and I sat in a private, soundproof room as I unpacked the contents. It wasn't jewelry. It was 3 solid-state hard drives containing mirror copies of his entire computer, his phone, and his hidden cloud accounts. It was a detailed, leather-bound ledger where I had tracked every dollar he borrowed for his failed businesses. And at the bottom, a small, black USB stick. This was my real insurance policy. It was a treasure chest of his betrayal. What was on that USB stick? A recording. 2 years ago, Clovis's brother, Ansel, had come to my house in a full-blown panic. He was sweating, pacing my kitchen, terrified. He admitted that Clovis had roped him into a previous fraudulent business deal, one that had bankrupted 3 small investors. Clovis had set Ansel up to take the fall, but Ansel had documents proving it was all Clovis's idea. He was sobbing, afraid of going to prison, afraid of his own brother. I saw my opening. I comforted him. I made him tea, and I made him an offer. I told him I would keep his secret. I told him I would hide the evidence for him, but only if he told me everything. He confessed for over an hour, and I recorded every single word. He detailed a lifetime of his brother's scams. Clovis didn't just betray wives. He betrayed his own blood. I had proof of a long, pathological history of fraud. And now, I had Ansel right where I needed him. We filed our first legal action. We didn't just sue for divorce. We filed for an emergency injunction and a criminal complaint for fraud. Leora, a former prosecutor, knew exactly which judge to bring it to. We sat in the judge's chambers, the air thick with tension. We presented the forged power of attorney. Then, we played the audio from the spy pen. The judge's face turned to stone as she heard Clovis and Maya laughing about my loopy signature and how doped up I would be. The payoff was immediate and brutal. The judge banged her gavel. Emergency injunction granted. Mr. Caldwell's assets are frozen, pending a full investigation. The house sale was stopped. The new owners, a shell company I'd discovered Clovis set up, couldn't take possession. More importantly, the money from the sale was now frozen in an escrow account. He couldn't touch a single penny. That afternoon, a process server walked right up to my old front door and handed him the papers. He was trapped. My private investigator's full report was more devastating than I could have imagined. The affair with Maya wasn't his only one. It wasn't even his most serious one. Leora handed me the bound document. It was thick. I opened it and my hand started to shake. It was filled with photos, plane tickets, and apartment leases. Clovis had a second, secret life. He had another woman in another city, 3 hours north. But it was worse than that. I turned the page, and a photo of a small child stared back at me. A 3-year-old boy. A little boy who had my husband's eyes. He had been siphoning my money, my salary, my inheritance, for years to support his entire other family. He had told them I was a business partner who traveled constantly. My stress-induced aneurysm, it all made sense. My body had been screaming at me. Maya wasn't the woman he was leaving me for. She was just the temporary entertainment, a toy he'd bought with my money to keep him busy while I was dying. Clovis and Maya, furious about the injunction, tried to enact their plan B. They thought they were still smarter than me. Maya, after all, still had her keys to my architectural firm, Elena Designs. They let themselves in after hours, planning to poach my entire client list and steal my proprietary designs. They probably thought they could just take over my business, my life's work. I pictured them, their voices echoing with arrogance as they unlocked the main office door. They opened it, and they walked into a completely empty, cavernous room. All that was left was dust and an echo. The day I went into the ICU, the moment the stress had finally broken my body, my lawyer had executed the dissolution clause on my old LLC. My staff, my clients, my servers, and all my assets had already been legally moved to my new, unlisted firm, Elena Architectural. They were trying to rob a ghost. I got a frantic, garbled text from Maya minutes later. The office, it's empty? I didn't reply. Clovis was panicking. I could feel it even from across town. The house money was frozen. My company, which he saw as his personal ATM, had vanished. His credit cards, which were all tied to our joint account, were being declined everywhere. That's when the debt collectors started calling me. He had been very busy while I was in the ICU. He had used my name and that forged power of attorney to take out 3 separate high-interest business loans. The total was over $100,000. The debt collectors, unable to find him at my house, had tracked me to my parents' address. They were calling my elderly mother, harassing her, demanding payment. He hadn't just tried to steal my future. He had tried to saddle me with his crippling debt, too. He was booby-trapping my life from the past. I told Leora to add it to the growing mountain of charges. "This is good, Elena," she said, her voice cold. "This is intent to defraud. It's federal." It was time to use the USB stick. It was time to call Ansel. I dialed his number from my new phone. He answered on the fourth ring, his voice shaky and small. "Hello, Ansel," I said, my voice perfectly calm and level. "It's Elena. I need you to listen to me very carefully. Clovis is going to prison." I heard him take a sharp, ragged breath. He forged my signature to sell my house while I was in the ICU. He also took out over $100,000 in fraudulent loans in my name. The police have the evidence, Ansel. All of it. I let that sink in, letting the silence stretch. I told him not to, he stammered. I told him he was going too far. "It doesn't matter what you told him," I interrupted. "It only matters what you do now. I have a USB stick. The one you gave me 2 years ago. The one with all the proof about his previous scams. The one that proves you were his accomplice then." He started to panic, to babble. "Please, Elena, he's my brother." I cut him off. "I'm making you an offer. You have 2 paths, Ansel. You can be a cooperating witness for the prosecution, and I will tell the DA you came to me willingly. Or you can be a co-conspirator, and I will hand this USB stick to them today. Your choice." While Ansel was weighing his options, Maya was, incredibly, still posting on Instagram. She was oblivious. She had locked down her account after our meeting. But my PI had been following her for months. I had a full, sickening portfolio of her new life. She posted selfies from my bathtub, a glass of my expensive champagne in her hand, with the hashtag blessed. She was posing in my garden, her feet up on my custom-designed patio furniture, with captions like "Living the Dream" and "Our New Beginning." She had blocked me, of course. She thought she was safe, hidden in the digital castle I had paid for. She thought she was a partner in his victory. She had no idea she was just a disposable accomplice. I sat at my hotel desk, the cheap lamp buzzing, and opened my laptop. I created a new, anonymous email address, justice.for.elena@gmail.com. It felt cold and appropriate. I composed a new message. The subject, information regarding Maya, a concerned party. I attached the PI's full report. I attached the audio file, renaming it POA_forgery.mp3. I attached the PDF, other_family_evidence.pdf, with the photos of the other woman and the child circled in red. I addressed the email to the head of her alumni association, her parents, whose contact info she'd listed on her firm application, and the pastor at her family's church. Finally, I BCC'd a very popular local gossip blog that loved to expose high society scandals. I hovered over the send button. This wasn't just about Clovis. This was for the woman who wore my robe. She wanted to be seen. I was going to make sure she was. I clicked it. The gossip blog post went live within an hour. It was faster and more brutal than I could have ever expected. Local architect's husband, his 2 women, and the forged house sale. My phone, which had been silent, exploded. It buzzed so hard on the hotel desk that it sounded like an angry hornet. Texts from old friends, distant relatives, former colleagues. "Is this true? Elena, I am so sorry. I never trusted him." I ignored them all. I was waiting for a different call. It came the next day. An unknown number from a different area code. I answered, my heart pounding. I put it on speaker for Leora, who was with me, to hear. "Hello." It was a woman, sobbing so hard she could barely speak. Is this Elena?" she asked. It was her, the other woman, the mother of his child. She had just seen the blog post. "My friend sent it to me. I'm the woman in the pictures, with the baby." "I don't understand," she cried, her voice breaking. He told me his wife died 2 years ago. He said it was a car accident. We had a wedding in Mexico. He married me." The phone almost slipped from my hand. My blood ran cold. Leora's eyes went wide, and she grabbed a legal pad. This wasn't just an affair. This wasn't just theft. My husband was a bigamist. Leora was already scribbling. She muted our end. "This changes everything," she whispered, her voice electric. "This isn't a divorce, Elena. This is a complete criminal annulment. He's not your husband. He's a con artist." Clovis was now facing a mountain of charges: fraud, forgery, identity theft, and now bigamy. His entire life was collapsing. The last person he thought he could trust was Maya. But Maya's life was also in ruins. The blog post and the emails had destroyed her. Her parents had disowned her. Her university had opened an ethics investigation. She was toxic and she was terrified. I approached her one more time through Leora. Leora met her in a dark booth at a 24-hour diner. Leora told me Maya was shaking, that she hadn't stopped crying. Leora didn't threaten her. She just slid the photos of Clovis's other wife and child across the table. He wasn't leaving Elena for you, Maya, Leora said calmly. He was juggling you both. You were just a toy. Maya's face, I was told, turned white. Help us, Leora said, and I will ask the DA to list you as a cooperating witness. You'll be a victim, not an accomplice. You will get a suspended sentence. Otherwise, you are going to prison with him for conspiracy to commit fraud. You have 1 hour to decide. Maya agreed. She was terrified, but she was more angry than afraid. The betrayal by Clovis, the fact that he had another, realer family, had flipped her allegiance. The police were eager to cooperate. This confession would seal the case. They fitted her with a wire, a tiny device hidden in her bra. She called Clovis, crying hysterically, using the same fake sobs she had tried on me. She told him the police were at her door, asking questions about the house sale. She begged him to tell her what to do. He told her to calm down, that she was being weak. And then he confessed. He confessed to everything. He admitted to the forgery, bragging that it was perfect. He admitted to the loans. He admitted to the bigamy, laughing that his other wife was too stupid to ever find out. And then, the final chilling admission. He told Maya the plan was always to dump her in Mexico, take all the money, and start fresh on his own. You didn't think you were the end of the line, did you, baby? He'd sneered. The wiretap was a perfect, unbroken confession of his sociopathy. We gave the wiretap to the police. They now had an airtight case. A full, detailed, and arrogant confession on top of the mountain of evidence I had already provided. There was no, she said, he said. It was just he said. They didn't wait. My PI, Alani, had been shadowing Clovis. He was at a small coffee shop across town, trying to sell Maya's new luxury car for cash. He was desperate for money to flee the country. He was arguing with the potential buyer, trying to get a better price, his voice loud and obnoxious. 2 detectives walked in, calm as you please. They'd been sitting in the car next to him. They called his name. Clovis. He looked up, his face a mixture of annoyance and confusion. Yeah, what? One of the detectives smiled. You're under arrest. They put his hands behind his back and cuffed him, right there at the table. It was quiet, professional, and utterly humiliating. His coffee sat untouched. The other patrons stared, phones suddenly in their hands, recording. His reign, built on my money and my trust, was over. The arrest was public, but I knew I had to control the narrative. Clovis would try to paint me as a crazy, vindictive wife. His family would post on social media. Maya would try to save herself. So I took control. I sat in my new, temporary office. I set up a camera, a simple one on a small tripod. I wasn't wearing makeup. I was wearing a simple, gray sweater. I looked tired, but I looked strong. I hit record. I posted a 30-minute My Story video on YouTube. I laid it all out, my voice calm and factual. I wasn't an angry ex-wife. I was a witness. I talked about the ICU, the lockout, the forged documents. I showed the redacted power of attorney on the screen. I played a 20-second clip from the spy pen, where you could hear him and Maya laughing as he practiced my name. I talked about his other family, the bigamy, the wiretap. I was calm. I was factual. I was believable. I had receipts for every single claim. I ended the video by looking directly into the camera. He thought I was weak. He mistook my kindness for stupidity. He was wrong. And I hope my story helps any other woman who feels trapped. The video exploded. It didn't just go viral. It was a digital wildfire. It hit 1 million views in a single day. Then 5 million. It was picked up by national news outlets, not as a local crime, but as a masterclass in preparation. My new architectural business was flooded with messages of support and, more importantly, new clients. Women from all over the country were emailing me, wanting me to design their homes, their offices, their safe spaces. I want a house, and Elena designed, one email read. An advocacy group started a fundraiser for me, and it raised tens of thousands of dollars in hours. I immediately posted a follow-up video, my voice thick with real emotion this time. I publicly redirected all the money to a legal aid fund for victims of financial abuse. I was lucky, I said, my voice cracking just once. I had the resources to fight back. I want to make sure every woman does. This was never about the money for me. This was about justice. The wave of support was overwhelming, a kindness that began to wash away the 21 days of lonely fear. The trial was fast. The evidence was a mountain. The district attorney stacked the charges so high, Clovis could barely see over them. Arrogant to the very end, he pleaded not guilty. He truly believed he could charm the jury, just as he had charmed me, Maya, and his other wife. He thought he was the smartest man in the room. He wore a new suit, paid for by his parents. The DA presented the forged documents, the spy pen audio, the bank records, and the full, devastating wiretap. Clovis's defense was that I was a vindictive woman who had set him up. Then, the DA called his final witness for the prosecution. The people call Ansel. Clovis's head snapped around. His brother walked in, his face pale, and took the stand. Ansel's voice was a reedy whisper as he detailed Clovis's entire life of pathological lies and fraud, starting with the scams against their own family. He confessed to his own involvement in the earlier fraud. He was the nail in Clovis's coffin, the ultimate betrayal that Clovis, the great betrayer, never saw coming. The jury was out for less than an hour. The foreman stood, his face grim. On the charge of forgery, how do you find? Guilty. On the charge of conspiracy to commit fraud, how do you find? Guilty. On and on it went. 12 counts of fraud. Guilty. Identity theft. Guilty. Bigamy. Guilty. Clovis slumped in his chair, all the charm and arrogance gone, leaving behind a hollow, terrified shell. His lawyer dropped his pen, and it clattered loudly in the silent courtroom. His eyes finally found mine. His face wasn't just angry. It was pure, unadulterated shock. He finally understood. He finally saw me, the real me, the meticulous architect he had dismissed as a simple wife, the woman he thought was too weak to fight back. I just looked back at him, and for the first time in 15 years, I didn't feel anger or love or pain. I didn't feel anything at all. He was, finally, just a man in a cheap suit, waiting to be taken away. The sentencing was brutal. The judge called him a societal predator who used human trust as a weapon. You didn't just break the law, Mr. Caldwell, she said, her voice cold. You broke a human being who was in your care. He got 20 years, with no chance of parole for 15. But the real victory, the true justice, came from Leora. Because of the bigamy, she filed a motion to have our marriage ruled void, ab initio. It means void from the beginning. The judge agreed. Legally, our marriage had never existed. Therefore, our finances were never legally joint. Every asset he had ever bought with my money, including Maya's now repossessed car and his other investment properties, was not a marital asset to be divided. It was simply stolen property. Everything was returned to me. He was left with nothing but his prison jumpsuit and the debts he owed his angry investors. There was one last loose end. Maya. I had attended her sentencing, sitting in the back row, invisible. As part of her plea deal with the district attorney, she admitted to conspiracy to commit fraud. In exchange for her crucial testimony and the wiretap, the DA recommended a suspended sentence. The judge, a woman I deeply respected, looked down at Maya with undisguised contempt. I am accepting the DA's recommendation, Miss Ellison, but make no mistake, I do so reluctantly. You are a convicted felon. The judge leaned forward. You allowed greed and a pathetic fantasy to help destroy a woman's life. You stood by and watched, and you were a willing participant. Then came the final verdict. You will serve 5 years of probation. You won't see the inside of a jail cell, but your life, as you knew it, is over. Maya just stood there, pale and hollow, a ghost of the arrogant girl who had sipped champagne in my robe. She had lost everything. Her career was over. Her family had disowned her, and her name was a synonym for scandal. A few weeks later, I received a one-line email from an anonymous account. "I'm sorry. I knew it was from her." I stared at the words for a long moment. Was she sorry for what she did? Or just sorry she got caught? I realized it didn't matter. She was no longer a part of my story. I didn't reply. I just moved my cursor to the trash icon and clicked delete. It was a simple click, but it felt like closing a heavy iron door. 1 year later, I was standing in the new, permanent office of my firm, Elena Architectural. The walls were glass, overlooking the city, and my company had a 2-year client waitlist. My YouTube video has inspired something new. I had started the Elena Foundation, a nonprofit that partners with architects to design beautiful, secure, safe houses for survivors of financial abuse. I stood in front of my old house. I'd had my team beautifully renovate it, exorcising all the bad memories and turning it into a masterpiece of light and air. I hammered the sold sign into the lawn myself. A lovely family was moving in. The entire, massive profit from the sale was the first official donation to my new foundation. The investigation made headlines for weeks, but I stopped reading after the first. Justice had been served. That was enough. I poured my energy into something new, something good. The foundation grew faster than I ever imagined. Every brick laid, every key handed to a woman who needed safety, became another piece of my own healing. Clovis tried to steal one house from me. I decided I would use it to build 100 safe ones for others. I had taken his greatest act of cruelty and turned it into my life's work. The woman he left on the curb was gone. The woman standing here had just begun. I am Elena Durant,